And this is Liquid Gold. Mike Wolf, why don't you go for it?
All right, where the only things prepared are the drinks and the rhyme to start the show. Welcome to Liquid Gold. I got you there before I even got done with the rhyme.
The last,
He
four
never
have
gets to
been
hear it.
fucking amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you, brother. My name's Mike Wolf. I'm always excited to be here with my co-host, partner in crime, Mr. Kenneth Dedmon. Welcome, Kenneth.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day outside, and we have rum in our glasses along with some crushed ice. We are swizzling the afternoon away. We do want to say thank you to We Own This Town for presenting the show and for being here. We're here at the We Own This Town studios here in Wedgwood, Houston. Our producer, Michael Eads, on hand. Shout out, Michael. And check out their We Own This Town music podcast. Super cool, as well as This Is the Place. They had a really interesting episode talking about Jackalope Brewery, which we can see out the window. So shout out Jackalope.
Yo.
It's Tiki Month here on Liquid Gold, and we're opening a fucking tiki bar in East Nashville. So Chopper, along with Andy Muma, Bryce McLeod, Nick Drohan is on hand, our head bartender at Chopper.
Well, hello.
Mr. Nick Drohan, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. We're going to get into all things tiki, exotic, tropical, and inappropriate, probably.
I hope so.
Because we do that. Also along with us, we are very excited to have her. She's the first person to find out about Chopper. Demi Natoli.
Hello.
How are you?
How's it going?
Now that you're
freaking
here,
good, yeah.
your beautiful toucan necklace,
Thank you.
which I think will show up on the Instagram. We took some photos. We had a photo shoot. It was very short.
Yeah.
But it's good
But at
to
least
check.
we remembered it.
It was
Yeah,
a
right.
shoot nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
One shot.
It is a lovely necklace. Do enjoy it.
It's a special handmade tiki necklace. This lady hand makes everything about the necklace, and I followed her on Instagram. And then when my
What's the handle?
Yeah, let's give her a shout out.
Yeah. Look it up. We got
Let me
time.
look it up.
Yeah, you can look it up. Well,
Is
so-
it hand painted?
It's hand painted, and she makes the actual ceramics.
whoa, that's
into
real
that.
deal.
Yeah.
I do recall
Yeah.
Future
doing that in,
merchandising.
I did that in Mexico when I was very young, actually.
Oh wow,
I had a little parrot, and I actually gifted it to one of my best friends.
wow.
Shout out Paul Granger.
Yeah, she makes these crazy things. I think this is her.
I wonder if she could get into making ceramic robot heads. I see that in her future, and she doesn't even know it.
Yeah. It's the
Maybe it
it's
was-
evolution of her art.
I can't find her because looking up, I don't remember her name. Just ceramic parrot necklace doesn't really work too well. But anyway,
We'll find her. We'll
I'll
give her
find
a
her.
shout out
Yeah.
on we might come back next week and give her a shout out on our shots episode that we'll get this crew back together for. We look forward to that.
oh, here it is. Here it is. Her name is Ruby Z Candice, and she makes these low-heat beads necklaces, and they go for $400.
Oh, my.
Oh dang.
I didn't
Maybe
pay that. I didn't pay it.
we could
but-
pitch in with the neighborhood to buy one.
Crowdfund it.
Let's crowdfund it. What's the handle?
It's Ruby Z Low-Heat, and it's on Etsy.
Awesome. Ruby Z Loheed.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Ruby Z
Etsy.
Low-Heat.
Cool. We'll also be, we'll go ahead and repost something on the Liquid Gold Instagram. Feel free to interact with us on there at liquidgold_pod on Instagram. And we, as always, invite you to collaborate with us, ask us for advice on a drink, anything that is on your mind. We are your bartenders in permanent residence over at liquidgold_pod. And I probably should at this point give a nice little shout out here to our boy Paul Hinman. Thank you so much for listening. And he was looking for some advice for a smoky aged cachaça that he's been messing around with. He was like, the caipirinha just isn't doing it for me. This cachaça is a little weird. So what do you got? Do you have a drink idea? So we kind of threw out a smoky cachaça, lime and orange juice, and we suggested some chinar, maybe some sfumato, rhubarb amaro, and we have heard positive reports from him that worked out really well. And then, as always, we recommended a cachaça Negroni, because when you're stuck with a spirit at home and you're wondering, oh, I'm just not really capturing this, I'm not really getting this right, make a Negroni with it, because Campari will come up and just smack it right in the face. And
So much
then
fun.
sweet vermouth is always a good idea, really. I didn't put any in this swizzle, but it's usually a good idea.
Yeah, thanks for the messages, y'all. Thanks for hitting
Sweet,
us up.
Bitter, strength. Always a good combination.
Just want to give a shout out to Craig Blankenship, the bar manager at the Khyber Pass Pub, forgive me, in Philadelphia, PA. He hit me up earlier today.
Yeah, you've been working on a project with him.
Well, not exactly. He just got me sidetracked in preparation.
Presented by Liquid Gold, here comes a cocktail menu with muscle cars.
A muscle
I love that.
car themed cocktail list for April.
That's great.
Yeah, he mentioned it. He's asked me if I had any ideas, so I was like immediately like Little Red Corvette, be like a Sealbach Griff, a Road Warrior, like whatever, Manhattan, whatever. Then I got really sidetracked and I came up with the Ben Diesel,
That's
which is
good.
a Benedictine
Benedictine swizzle.
Benedictine based swizzle, the Nice Scar.
Nice.
Or the NASCAR, which is like some sort of Boilermaker. Of course, like the Ricky Bobby would be like a Gen Ricky.
Damn.
Then
Are all of your garnishes just like little toy plastic cars?
I hope so. Like, you like micro machines?
Yeah.
Hot
I
Wheels?
think Hot Wheels. They need to be like a Hot Wheels garnish.
Hot
Right
Wheels
on
have
the
been
top.
on sale at Kroger. I've been buying them for my son. It's been getting me some points. at
Hot
home.
Wheels float.
Yeah.
Hot Wheels float.
It's great.
Imagine like the like Angostura like flowing in the seats of like the.
Yeah, that's what's up.
I'm sure it's happened in real life. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we finally settled on the Brand Torino though,
Oh, that's good.
like a sidecar riff. The Brand Torino.
Awesome. Well,
Stupid.
you have been busy, my man. So that's good to see. Don't work too hard.
Yeah, shout out
It's,
Craig. We love you.
Yeah, thanks for listening and checking us out. Some things we are not going to talk about today. What makes a pretzel? And does the answer hint at Tiki's inception?
Am I supposed to
That's
speak on
complicated.
that?
I mean, we weren't going to talk about it, but
I mean, the pretzel
have
is
any-
rooted in Lent, actually. When children had to abstain from sugar, a local monk invented the pretzel as a treat to give to children during Lent.
and yet I still feel like one of the key ingredients in a pretzel is brown sugar.
Do you think so?
I
Modern,
think so.
modern pretzel. Out of
More
season.
research.
The pretzel out of season, you can do whatever you want.
More like a tiki drink. There is no off season.
It's like
For
putting
a
pineapple
tropical
on your
drink.
pizza.
Yeah,
That's a hot topic, and we're not going to get into that.
we're not going to
Let's
get into
not get into
pineapples
that.
on pizza. We're also one other thing we're not going to talk about: locals that out Nashville, other Nashvillians.
It's a touchy subject. Everyone assumes
this?
everyone's not from there.
Kenneth will get into this topic very, very deeply.
No.
Yeah, Kenneth grew up here, and if you want to like
Do not
be
know
like, I remember
Nashville.
when that building was a Pizza Hut, he'll be like, nah, before that it was a Piggly Wiggly.
Oh, my
It
boyfriend
served
does that.
biscuits.
He's like
Leading
like,
into-
from here.
Yep.
Our next thing not to talk about is just Uber drivers in general. But I will talk about my new hobby. It's when I get into an Uber and I pretend to be a tourist.
Oh,
It's
do you
the
get
best.
recommendations that way?
Yeah. It's great. Jack's Barbecue. It's a hot spot. Tootsie's, of course. Tootsie's, of course. Of course, Tootsie's.
Sure.
You got to.
Always.
You got it, Tootsie's.
Tootsie's comes with the, of course.
All the best tourist advice just usually leads to getting into line somewhere.
Like, how many hours did you wait at Biscuit Love after
Yeah.
you got out of that?
Yeah.
Uber?
Well, you have to see the wings, so you might as well get a biscuit while you're over there.
Yeah, right.
It's a shame you can't like do a joint line. Like, I'm gonna hold my place in the wing line while I go to the biscuit line, and then once you get your biscuit, you go back to the wing line.
Oh my
the
gosh.
wing line.
Or
Or
This
you
is
could
terrifying.
outsource. You could outsource line placeholders.
That's like an
No.
actual thing in New York, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do
Gotta
it
do
if I had a
business like
failing business. I would just get the family and go stand in line out front.
I thought of it as like a successful business. Like, that's an enterprise. Maybe we can.
Yeah,
all,
I mean,
you
that's-
get
People-
into.
Yeah, I
People
could
love to
definitely
stand in
stand and
line.
do nothing if I had good shoes.
And
I could
someone
just
was
stand
paying
there.
you to do it.
Yeah, sure. I could listen.
not talking
I could
Nikes.
listen to podcasts while I'm doing it.
Absolutely.
Little
Liquid
earpiece,
gold.
like a like a Secret Service agent waiting for pancakes.
Yeah. I mean, if they got Wi-Fi, I'll do that. I don't want to blow up my data.
Wow, what a great this feature not going to talk about is going really well today. We're talking about a lot of great things. The last thing that we're not going to get into in any depth is Marilyn Manson's favorite restaurant in Nashville.
I happen to know what that is. So
You do happen to know. What is it?
Pepper Fire East Nashville.
Wow.
I actually ate that last night, and it was delicious.
Fuck yeah, they're great.
I love Pepper Fire.
Yeah.
Even a bad attempt
Me too.
at hot chicken these days, I can respect it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's bad.
Except for KFC.
I think it's damn good.
Popeyes is cool.
I would say go extra hot because the hot is not that hot. But I like that.
Fair enough. You a Pepper Fire fan?
Never been.
Yeah.
We're going afterwards.
Are we?
Go get Pepper Fire.
Okay.
I got four words for you. Deep fried grilled cheese.
It is
Oh.
unbelievable.
That
with
sounds
hot
delicious.
chicken on top of it.
Damn.
You know
Also
what an
sounds like
amateur
a-
move to do at Pepper Fire is? Call ahead. You call ahead, you're a jerk. You show up and you sit down and you wait.
Hey, I call ahead. I have kids.
Okay, that's fine.
You're a
man.
jerk,
Hey,
though,
man.
obviously.
You want to parade your kids around.
Don't
Cut
forget,
the line.
Don't forget they are on Postmates and they show up very, very fast and it's free delivery.
Who am I kidding? I don't ever leave the house. I just Postmates shut it anyway.
Postmates Pepper
I could
Fire.
ride my bike to Tower and get some fried chicken or a dope sandwich, but I'll be damned if I don't have like the largest Uber Eats account in the city. There we
And you
go.
know what I
Thank you.
thought? You want to talk Parapalooza? We are going to talk Parapalooza later in the show. We have some tropical movies we're going to throw out.
We
and
got a lot
drinks.
coming at y'all.
Drinks that you can pair with some of your favorite tropical movies that we're going to throw out. But it got me thinking about the Singapore noodles and the Singapore sling. So, Demi, I'll put it to you.
Yeah.
What's your favorite kind of way to make a Singapore sling? The
I actually have one.
lost, forgotten, weird cocktail of the Tiki Cannon / exotic drink cannon that I have my own opinions about the cherry aspect, which we could get into later. But what's your favorite Singapore sling?
When I was working at a tiki bar, that's really amazing in Chicago.
Lost Lake, which
Lost
we
Lake.
are going to talk all about. We want to talk about your experiences
famous
there.
spot.
Yes.
Very cool spot.
Yeah.
We had a really long list of like secret drink items. So we had our main cocktail list, which was usually like 12 to like 15 cocktails, and then we had some like mocktails, which was really cool. But our secret menu had well over 100, like just various different cocktails from past menus and like tiki classics. But the Singapore sling we made often. It was just kind of like one that people had, you know, in their back pocket, like whether or not they knew about tiki, they were just like, oh, Singapore sling, like I've heard of that before. I used to really enjoy doing like a fresh lime hole in the drink. So like instead of, I guess, like just using like lime juice, like a lot of times we would take like our juicer.
That's always better.
Always better.
Yeah.
If
And
you
just,
got
like-
the time and the means, it's always better.
You might as well. Like we did our Mai Tais like that. Not to give away trade secrets because we all know that that's a big thing in tiki, but we did do that a lot. Like for our Mai Tai, we would take our juicer, which was like on our cutting board, and in the side, everything was hidden. So you really couldn't see any of our tools anyway. But like chop a lime, squeeze it, measure it, make sure it's the right amount, and then throw your whole like lime hole in there so you get the oils too. And I did that with our Singapore sling sometimes. And then like using like a tablespoon of sugar instead of like simple syrup and shaking it with like the fresh lime juice in the hole. And just like a little bit of cherry herring, not like an overly amount, as long as it's proportionate. It came out really good. It was just like so bright and like a little bit more acidic.
Sure.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
How did one go about getting a secret menu? Was there a certain knock or a snap that you did, or did you just ask for it?
You would kind of know. So like sometimes we would post on our Instagram our
A wink?
yeah, kind of. You would say like, hey, do you have any like cocktails that aren't on the menu? Or, you know, someone would come in and ask for like can you make a Polynesian paralysis, or can you make, you know, like a Mai Tai, which wasn't on our menu actually. We didn't have any classics on our menu. We just had Lost Lake drinks. So if you wanted a classic, you kind of like ask like, do you have any classics that you can make? And we'd be like, okay. And we only had like 2 or 3 of the menus because they were really intricate cocktails. Like we didn't always have everything in our well. So it was something that we only pushed out like a couple times, you know, like we didn't want everyone in the room to have one.
That's what's up. What about you, Nick? Singapore sling. East Coast Showdown here.
Well, did
Demi's
we finish,
from South Florida.
Hold on, did we finish her Singapore Sling? Was that the crux of it? The lime hull with the sugar.
Yeah, I mean
that's the
that
crux
was
of it.
Yeah, but then like obviously like cherry herring, and then like I really like using Forge gin. Not to like push out a brand or anything, but
Sure. Well, he lives in East Nashville. Shout out.
Yeah. Hey Simon. Yeah, like using Forge, I think it's really cool. Also, like if you're not a rum drinker, a lot of times we would get that guest in that would say like, "Hey, I don't really like drinking rum. Like, what can you make for me?" And like a Singapore Sling was always a good.
Totally.
choice.
That is I think one of its best features is the fact that on drinks on menus that have a ton of different rum drinks and stuff, the Singapore Sling is one sort of outlier, being that it's a classic gin drink that still fits into that whole vibe. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Nick, what's your Singapore Sling like?
I definitely always enjoy a heavy, strong drink. So I'm gonna say Plymouth. I like Navy strength. And I love to throw.
Going big.
I love myself Sailor Jerry's. Not everybody really likes Sailor Jerry's, but I think it's actually pretty great for cocktails.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best for straight up, but
Yeah.
for cocktails it works pretty well and very cost efficient. I definitely enjoy the cherry herring aspect to it. Fresh lime always. It's a little bit of sugar.
Yeah.
Cherry herring's pretty sweet already, so yeah, I like it strong. I
Yeah.
definitely like it strong. Heavy on the Plymouth though.
Yeah, we made our
Light.
swizzles strong.
Light Sailor Jerry.
You did?
A little Benedictine in there too. I forgot.
What's
yeah,
that?
always
Always
Benedictine.
Benedictine.
Yeah.
Oh, also a little absinthe always goes. Just like 2 dashes of absinthe
Interesting.
makes everything a little bit brighter.
Sure. Get that brighter baciousness.
Nice
Yeah.
spritz over
Yeah.
the top too.
That's awesome. Now, one thing I learned researching, this was a while back for a drink we were doing at Husk, where we were doing, I wanted to do a Singapore Sling riff that didn't have, when I was like doing this research and looking at, I think it was a David Wondrich deep dive he did on Singapore Sling 100 years ago, finding out that the cherry aspect of some of the original Singapore Slings was unaged cherry brandy. So Kirschwasser.
Kirschwasser.
So we would use that Clear Creek Kirschwasser, which is just amazing and has that kind of funk. It has a freshness to it. It has a brightness to it. And then a lot of people thought the color was either from Angostura, which I thought was great in a Singapore Sling, or a touch of red wine. And so that's what we did. We did a tiny bit of red wine, like kind of a bright, juicy, nothing too tannic or nothing too dry, too grippy. So we had kind of a soft red wine, like a 1/4 ounce, and then a dash of Angostura, and then we had 1/2 ounce, I guess. So about 1/2 ounce of the unaged cherry brandy, and then regular Plymouth. And it was really nice. It was like sort of it made it almost a little bit more like a European style drink or something.
It
where we had a
sounds
little
like
soda.
sangria. Like
Yeah,
my,
sure,
my mom
sure.
grew up, we would like have sangria on Sundays, and there's always like brandy and obviously like whatever wine was left over from the week and like some Sprite and usually like a little other flavoring, but like it sounds like it's going in that direction.
Yeah, totally.
I wish I had it.
I'll make it for you sometime. I'll remember.
I've always used Grand Marnier.
Chopper Chef.
I always thought Grand Marnier was really great, and also like while you're bringing up the absinthe, I would always use like a splash of green chartreuse. So,
Yeah.
like in the same ballpark.
Sure.
What a great cocktail!
That's cool. We all have very different ways to make the
Very
Singapore
different.
Sling. And I like that when we get into a drink here where we talked about Pim's Cup with Sally. When you talk to bartenders or even Kenneth and I talking drinks, it's amazing how, you can interpret one drink kind of the same, but also very different. So that's cool.
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to Singapore Sling drinkers in general because they're usually kind of the coolest guests. Like they throw that drink out. They're not a douchebag.
Yeah. I mean, they're looking for something in particular,
Yeah.
Like even if maybe you can't make that,
I mean, as long as they don't have a written down recipe for you to make, which
Oh,
which
gosh.
might be fine if they have like draw hearts on it, but 90% of the time they don't
Would
dot
you
their I's with a
make
heart.
Singapore Sling for a Long Island iced tea drinker?
like
could be
slip it
dangerous.
on them.
I mean, like, they
Slip
just
it on
drink
'em.
anything. Literally, they drink
Exactly.
everything. So.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. We'll do that
Everything in
next.
one cup.
Yeah.
I really,
Top with Coca-Cola,
Oh,
so you know it's good.
I really hate making Long Island iced teas, so I always like to be like, nah, I'm gonna make you something more fun, and you're not gonna know what it is.
It's worth a shot.
Shots.
They're probably just gonna chug it, so why not?
So, Demi, before you were at Lost Lake, you were in Florida, where your mom owns a few bars
Yeah.
here and there, has been in the business for a long time.
Yeah.
So you kind of grew up in the business?
Sort of. I really kind of got into tiki because I really loved music. Mm-hmm. So, with my love for music, I used to go to a venue that was like maybe 30 minutes from my house. Florida's like a really kind of just like vast state, and you have to drive everywhere. And like when you're a kid, there was no Uber when I was a kid. You know, you didn't get into a taxi and drive across town. That just like wasn't allowed. And I had older friends, but growing up in like a Latin family, like my mom, which is like, you're not driving in a car with another kid. That doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
my mom used to take me to these shows across town. And we kind of, when I was younger, befriended a tattoo shop owner who like owned the tattoo shop that was next to the venue. And the venue is called the Monterey Club. And I used to go there and see like ska and punk and like surf rock shows.
What part of Florida?
It's in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, gotcha.
And they like the guys there were like so cool. Like these were like all these older dudes who were like into vintage cars, and they all dressed rockabilly. And you know, I don't know if you can like see the picture that I'm like, painting, but
it's coming
like
in.
a super rockabilly scene. And then the tattoo shop next door was called Creepy Tiki. And it was a tiki tattoo shop. It was just the coolest place, and I just fell in love with it. Like, I used to go to these shows, and then I would go to the tattoo shop, and, like, I was, like, 14 hanging out in, like, a tattoo shop. I don't know what that really says about my mom, but she was there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, she would drive me to this thing, this show, whatever I wanted to go see, and then she would wait at the tattoo shop and, like, hang out with the tattoo shop owner, who's, like, now an uncle to me. And kind of befriended them. And then we have been in the service industry, like in different like areas. And one day the owner, Jackson, he approached my parents and was kind of like, hey, we're thinking about taking over the Monterey Club after it closed. And we're going to turn it into a tiki bar. And so that's kind of how I started.
How old were you then?
I was 18
Wow.
at that point. I mean, I had already started like working in the service industry, bartending a little bit. Like, there aren't like really strict laws about that in Florida. Like, if you work for, I mean, Florida's a lawless state, obviously, but
Shout out Florida.
Yeah, we've got a couple of mild Floridians. I mean, you grew up there. Johan spent a lot of time there.
where are you from there?
I am not from there, but I spent a little over 2 years in Naples, Florida.
Oh,
But
that's very tame.
I was back and forth.
He was retiring.
I was back and forth over Alligator Alley quite often.
Yeah.
I do enjoy the classic cheesy Mai Kai.
Yeah.
I know it is very cheesy.
It's so cheesy.
Great.
See, once again, we're dubbing this episode the East Coast Showdown.
Yeah. It's so the Mai Kai opened in like the early 60s. And it was opened by some former Don the Beachcomber employees. And they moved out to not Miami, but to Fort Lauderdale. And they opened this palace, this like tiki palace. And before it's like the Mai Kai that it is now, it used to be like very Don the Beachcomber, like no totems, like very. It almost like reminded me a lot of Lost Lake, the way that it used to look. Like there's not really like artifacts. It's just like a lot of like greenery, which Florida is great for. And I like grew up going to the Mai Kai all the time.
Very cheesy, but
But it's very cheesy.
So you're steeped in it.
yeah.
It's only right that you would end up at Lost Lake.
It's kind of only right that I would end up there. But
Yeah.
either way, it turned into this like crazy place after all of these other places started shutting down. So like in the 70s, when all of these places were closing, they added their gardens and they added their fire dancing show. And I'm friends with the owner of the company who does all the fire dancing. My mom just did an event with them last night before she's driving up here.
it is always fun to check out the fire dancing show.
Let's get them out to Nashville over to Chopper.
I know. It would be a drive, but it's
Maybe we could set them up in the parking lot or something.
maybe they would be into. His name is Talani. He's super cool, actually, like Polynesian, very cool guy. but met him through all of the guys that used to drive cars and like hang out at that tattoo shop. That's how I kind of like got into tiki. It was just like we opened up this tiki bar with this guy who's like my uncle, like family to me, and that's how I met Paul and Shelby. I was actually already living in Nashville, but I had traveled back and forth to Fort Lauderdale to help out my mom with some tiki events. So I went back down in June several years ago to help her with Hukilau, which is like a huge event. And people would go to the Mai Kai, and like the entire event is at the Mai Kai and the Pier 66 Hotel, which is like a mid-mod hotel.
Yeah, I've seen the Instagram posts of matching outfits and
absolutely.
poolside hangs. Yeah.
So it's like a whole weekend of just getting drunk off tiki drinks, and I would go back down to help her with that. And I was working a pier then, and I met Paul and Shelby, and I was like just hanging out, doing my thing, and they were, you know, kind of like, who are you? Who's this person in the middle of nowhere, Florida, that is doing this tiki thing, and your drinks aren't disgusting, you know, sugary and gross and using fake juices and stuff. And we just kind of kept in touch, and they offered me a job, and I said, hell yeah, I'm leaving. I'm going to Chicago. And so I was there for a while. It was a really weird, like, interesting story.
How did you adjust to the cold?
It was very cold. You know, buy a parka.
Very cold.
Buy long johns. You know, get all those things.
So I was born in North Carolina, but I grew up mostly in Denver, Colorado. And it gets cold there. Like you definitely have stretches that are in the single digits, in the teens, what have you. The sun always comes back around. The warmth always comes back around, even if it's January. But Chicago's so cold that where I used to go for Christmas, almost every year, we would kind of meet in Chicago and then go up to see my grandma who lives, or I guess, I'm sorry. She lives southwest.
But in North Indiana.
Yeah, in North Indiana. And I had items in my closet that I only wore in Chicago. Like face guard.
Absolutely.
Ear muffs. These gloves that I would never wear in Denver. Because people in Denver, they just like walk around in like shorts if it's like 30
a dry
degrees.
Cold, isn't it? Like that's what people always say.
Yeah, it's a dry cold.
Yeah, Chicago's like a wet cold, like
wet, miserable, slapping the face cold.
Yeah, bone chilling cold.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, but you kind of like adjust to it, and it sounds weird as a person from Florida who lived in 100-degree weather. It's just a complete opposite.
When it's cold all the time, you can handle it. It's just when you have a swing temperature that you can't. That's why I hate winters in the south more than winters in the north.
Well, I've gotten sick so much this winter just from the back and forth. But in Chicago, I didn't get sick once.
Yeah, and I've heard, so my best friend lived up there for a long time. I would go up there and see him. And other people I would talk to about Chicago, they would say, you just cuss more. You just cuss your way through it. Like you're walking down the street and you haven't stopped into a place like for a beer for a while, or like stop into a place. Because that's the thing in Chicago, right? If you're walking, if you're getting around, you're just going to pop in somewhere just to like survive.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is this place? Is this a bar or coffee shop? What am I having? Whatever.
You don't care at that point.
But if you go too long, you just start cussing. You know, you're like, God damn.
I think that's why tiki bars work so well.
That's why I went to the bar, honey. I was cussing too much.
You told me not to cuss so much. So I went to the bar.
Now I'm just a drunk.
It's winter.
So you get up to Chicago. How long had Lost Lake been open at that point?
They'd been open a couple years at that point. They had already had the fire that took down Thank You Chinese, and they were already in the process of rebuilding the kitchen and the now satellite bar that's over on the other side called Stranger in Paradise. And I had come in basically when we were still making like ramen noodles, like the Momofuku, like ramen noodles with cheese and like scallions on them, and they were so delicious. But now they have really wonderful food from Chef Fred, who's just an incredible chef, and Chef Danny, who's also really incredible. And it's still just like Lost Lake now, not like a separate restaurant, and just the food is just higher elevated, really delicious, just like really unique items to pair with really wonderful cocktails.
Cool.
Yeah, I miss it a ton. I don't know if you could tell.
You miss everything but the weather, I'm sure.
Everything but the weather. I mean, I could go. That polar vortex my friends were telling me about, and luckily they didn't have to go to work in negative 54-degree like wind chills.
Oh, man. They got it bad this year.
Yeah, they got it bad, and I wasn't really missing that too much.
Definitely not. My blood definitely thinned out living in Florida. I was cold when I first moved to Nashville. The winter was cold here 3 years ago.
Was that ice apocalypse winter? Where the ice shut the city down for a few days?
2016, yeah.
No, that was
the year before?
That was like the year before.
That was nasty.
That was shitty, dude.
So
Oh yeah.
one thing about Lost Lake that I really liked the few times I've been there, something that kind of stuck out to me that I want you to speak on is not necessarily now we went over this a minute ago, but not necessarily like having a classic there. It was more about originality. It was more about, to me, complexity, intensity. There was a lot of flavor. There was a lot of complexity going on. So what were some favorites, or what was kind of the overall, I guess, thinking behind that?
I mean,
or was that intentional, or was it just...
It was absolutely intentional.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for their first menu, so I don't know, and I can't really speak to as what was on that first opening menu after, Paul had left 3 Dots and a Dash and was like doing his own thing, which is completely like Paul and Shelby's own place. But the thought behind it was just like, Chicago is a really educated market. Like people aren't going in there and asking you really like what tamarind is, which is something we have at the menu at LA Jackson, and people are like, I just don't know. Mm-hmm. And, if someone didn't know, you let them know in like a very judgmental way. But people were like really interested in trying those different things. People were really interested in like getting out of their comfort zone. And it's like, I wouldn't have the same guest have the same drink 3 times because they wanted to try everything. They wanted to get through the menu. And I think that Shelby and Paul were very instrumental in like kind of like teaching us a lot about the bar business. Like I learned a lot when I was doing things on my own, but I learned even more so when someone else showed me, And I think that's like everybody can say that, but
sure.
They sat down with us and like did menu planning with us and showed us like, this is the way that we craft a menu. And so there's always like a tequila drink for the tequila person. There's always a bourbon drink for the person who doesn't like rum, and there's always a gin drink, and there's always X amount of rum drinks, and there's always that main thing, like that main base spirit that you're looking for, but the items, ingredients will change. And
sure.
As long as you have like those kind of like 10 to 12 main drinks, and you can change the items that are in them. And people in Chicago are just, I think, willing to try new stuff.
Yeah. Willing to experiment, willing to explore, I guess, a little bit, because there's so much good food there. All these different styles of food there. Amazing Mexican food there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And all, like I went to a place that we just sort of stumbled on one time there that was like Peruvian and South American style and had all these like pisco, cachaça drinks.
Cool.
That was super cool. But it's a very wide-ranging food scene there and drink scene. Yeah. And so you kind of have to cater to that.
You do. And I think that especially with tiki drinks having, like a split base, like Don the Beachcomber style, or like using, different sorts of ingredients like Trader Vic style, I think you're almost kind of expected to do something a little different. Like you don't just want a Mai. I felt like our guests didn't just want a Mai Tai because they've had that before. Yeah. They wanted something a little different. So like we got to use like guava, and I don't know if we used papaya on the last menu, but guava and like papaya and tamarind, and we would use like coconut, and they're using key limes right now. They're getting to use all of these different things, and tiki kind of works really great with that because it's all exotic and tropical, and tiki is based off of these Caribbean drinks, and all of these flavors are Caribbean, like allspice, and like cinnamon is a baking spice flavor, and like all of these really cool things are sourced from that area of the world.
Totally. And I'll pose this question to both Demi and Nick and Kenneth. What are some of your favorite classic tiki drinks? Like you talk about the Don the Beachcomber era, that kind of led to the Trader Vic's era, where it was kind of more orange juice and a little bit more lemon got thrown in. Orgeat, which we are going to talk about. And then you had kind of the luau period where they seemed to get a little more, I would say a little more streamlined. People were like riffing on some of the earlier Don the Beachcomber drinks, but also like making things their own and simplifying them a little bit. So what are some of your favorite classic tiki drinks? Demi, we'll start with you.
I'll start. I actually wrote them down.
Nice.
So one of my like super favorite ones that I don't think a lot of people have heard about is a con tiki drink from Bob Esmino in the 60s. It's called a Caribbean cocktail, and it's almost like a Cuba Libre, but with a little bit of like ginger, lime, and like throw some mango and absinthe in there. And I think it's like really cool if you have somebody who really is just like a rum and Coke drinker, you know, working at a high volume bar right now, people just want what they want, you know.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you can't convince them otherwise, and this would
Are
be...
you sure you don't want a zombie?
I say
It's
that.
a fucking zombie. I want a rum
like,
and Coke.
We have all the stuff to make a zombie, and we actually make our DJ zombies, which is hilarious because he'll have like 3 of them, and I use like a 2 full ounce of OFTD, so he's definitely wasted by the end of his set.
Do you make him play the zombies?
No, I don't. It definitely would not fly currently. But yeah, the Caribbean cocktail is one of my favorite ones. I don't think that a lot of people know about that one.
Cool.
I love like a voodoo grog is one of those on there. It's an egg white cocktail. That's a super different thing for tiki, and that's a Trader Vic one. A Don's Own grog is one of my favorite ones. I love a good grog, and
Sure.
this is like instead of a navy grog, a Don's grog has a little bit like more blackberry and kind of like stone fruit to it, and not a tiki drink at all, but I love a Bahama Mama. Definitely more of like a Florida tropical
I love
drink.
the Bahama Mama.
But I
That sounds like it'd be a great shot too.
sub agricole rum instead of like a regular, just kind of like, you know, white Puerto Rican rum. Sub agricole. Mm-hmm. That would be a good.
Agricole
one.
being the method of making rum where you're using the fresh pressed sugarcane juice.
Yeah.
And letting that kind of ferment into a wine and then distilling that. And it's a grassier, more kind of vibrant.
Earthy,
actually
vegetal.
earthy,
contains more
funky.
sulfur than most rums.
It smells like it.
Yeah, it can be a wee bit poopy, but it makes a great cocktail.
It's super. I mean, it's like if you really
I
like
wouldn't
cachaça,
use
you were
that.
talking about cachaça
Yeah.
before. It's very similar.
Yeah, very
tasting.
similarly made.
Yeah.
Drohan, what are some of your favorite exotic cocktails
always a
in the
zombie.
canon?
As you know, Mike, I love a jet pilot. Jet pilot is definitely something that gets me
Can't
going.
argue with that.
We were making a lot of jet pilots last summer.
Yes,
And
we
then
were,
Southern Grist made their Chopper Jet Pilot Sour.
which was
So that was
amazing.
great.
I love a properly made hurricane. Definitely a big passion fruit drinker. I love like really vibrant fruit. So I definitely would like Don's Beach Planter with the pineapple and passion fruit and agricole rum and a little absinthe. And then something that's not super classic, that's a little bit more new age, would be the bitter Mai Tai.
Oh yeah, bitter Mai
that's a
Tai. I've had
delicious
some.
one.
I love a bitter Mai
I've had a delicious bitter Mai Tai from you, where you were making it with the St. George Bruto.
Bruto.
Weren't you making it with Bruto
Yes.
Americano?
Yes, I did like a really weird riff, a husk menu cocktail. I did like blackberry ginger shrub with Bruto and fresh lime, Ango. It was very weird. A lot of people didn't really understand it and thought it was just like a fruity rum drink, and they got like a really bitter, earthy cocktail.
Yeah,
Like,
were you not using the St. George agricole as well?
I started with it, but it was
Yeah.
too funky for people.
It's pretty funky.
But it was just too funky, so I think I switched it.
Yeah, the bitter Mai Tai is a good one.
I really enjoy it. It's also really good if you sub Chinar instead of Campari.
There we go.
I'm one of the newer kind of cats that likes Chinar 70. I know a lot of people like the traditional, but I like Chinar 70.
Yeah, I'm on the trad side with that one.
I think they're both delicious. But
I'll drink that
Yeah.
70 if it's like by itself and it's really fucking hot
Yeah.
and I'm dripping sweat like I'm mowing the lawn, but I locked the door behind me.
with grapefruit juice, absolutely. Put it in a Stiegel Radler, and you're on your way to a good day.
You guys do a lot for fun.
Yeah.
I'm just like a club soda person.
No way. I like to get crazy with my cocktails.
All right, then why don't you put orange juice in it because I work with you and you might as well keep that shit in your back pocket, bro.
Kenneth, favorite exotic cocktail?
One of my childhood best friends, his family was from Guam, but they grew up in Southern California. Shout out to the Chamorri people. They did a coconut rum based lime, typical, but used soy sauce. And
Whoa.
I'm assuming as opposed to Angostura. So you had like a little bit of umami sitting behind tropical flavors. I believe it was called Afade, which is Chimori for have a nice day. But I don't remember. That was ages ago. Not to date myself. I've known those folks for a very long time.
For like 60 years.
65 years.
Drohan, you made your way to Nashville from Florida. You were working down in Naples, where people go to retire. Got into some tropical drinks down there. And then when you came back up to Nashville, we were fortunate enough to have you at Husk. And it seemed like every time we turned around, he was using the ice crusher and making these tiki drinks.
Yeah, he was.
So where does your love for exotic cocktails, where does that come from?
Well, growing up, I was always preached by my family to drink juice. Juice is very good for you. Don't drink soda.
Where was this?
I'm from Massachusetts, where it's very cold for about 7-8 months out of the year. So everyone wants to think about paradise is the beach somewhere. So we all wanted to drink, exotic drinks to put our mindset away from the fact that winter lasts 7 to 8 months. Also, I started in construction and I got into opening restaurants, being the construction standpoint. And then I switched it. I broke my hand. Couldn't work construction for about 4 months. So I was just like, all right, well, I don't want to work construction anymore, so let's try to get into a bar. So I ended up working at an Asian fusion restaurant in South Boston for Ming Tsai. And I loved it because it was kind of like throwing the Polynesian tiki aspect into the cocktail menu very seldomly. It is now a huge tiki menu in that bar that is still standing.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I Boston, at a young age, I was into the clubs and I loved going out to party very differently than I do now. But drinks out there were very expensive, $17 for like a rum and coke. So
Whoa.
let's drink a zombie before going out to any kind of club like that and get our mind really right. You don't spend too much money on rum and cokes after you have 2 zombies.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about the zombie, basically known as the strongest exotic cocktail, anywhere between 1 to 2 ounces of a very high proof rum, but usually up to about 3 or more ounces of rum, depending on where you are. And there was the old caveat of limit 1 per guest, which was an old Don the Beachcomber thing. It is, if you're a cocktail drinker and you're into spirit forward cocktails, it's sort of the king or the queen of spirit forward drinks. And this is an old 1930s drink. If you want to try making it at home, let's see, you could try, well, we actually don't recommend you make it at home.
Yeah.
Come to Chopper when it's open. And
yeah, there you go.
Me and Mike will love to make you a drink.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, and it's worth mentioning that the home bartender does have some advantages in the fact that you're usually going to be squeezing the juice like with your hand, or you're going to be squeezing it with one of those little hand juicers, and that goes a long way for making drinks. Now, high volume type of bars that we've all worked at, that's not really practical. But if you're just at home making, a drink or two, that's you sort of have an advantage to a lot of these bars that you go to, because you're going to be getting those oils into the juice and into your drink. And so like Demi had mentioned with the Singapore
you're also wearing a robe.
Yeah. You're also in your underwear. So
even better.
That was easy.
Who's drinking a zombie at like 9 a.m. in their underwear?
I won't.
How many of your listeners?
Well, Sunday fun day. Let's be
a handful of them.
I'm still sleeping from last night's shift. Sunday at 9 a.m.
I think it's who's still wearing a robe at 9 p.m. And that's most of our listeners. God bless them.
During football season, you got to get up early, so a zombie at 9 a.m. is not uncalled for.
Also, if you say zombie right, it rhymes with every day.
So one of the key parts about a Mai Tai that we had talked about a little bit earlier is the Trader Vic's staple that was also an ancient cocktail ingredient going back to the 1860s, 1870s, Orgeat. So I thought it'd be cool to talk a little bit about that. Orgeat's basically an almond emulsion, a syrup that was originally where they used barley. It gives a beautifully floral kind of note to a lot of classic exotic cocktails, and even go back to the old Japanese cocktail that was a brandy cocktail that used Orgeat. So what are some of y'all's favorite tricks to make Orgeat, and maybe a favorite brand that someone could buy, like at a store?
I can only speak to the last Orgeat syrup that I made, which would have been Georgia peanut Orgeat, which peanut being a very popular nutty element to take the place of almond, and also a wee bit of ginger.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Hell yeah.
It was good. I do remember that.
Yes, spun it in the Vitamix, slowly added sugar, just like let the temperature chop it, let the friction increase and the temperature rise, and slowly chop it up.
The last syrup I made was a pecan orgeat.
That sounds great.
Really great. I did it for the Woodford competition most
Cool.
recently.
Which you were a finalist for?
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. I did like a milk punch with pecan orgeat and malt powder.
Fuck yeah.
And my and oat milk instead of instead of using dairy. But then I also did like a sort of tiki Manhattan. I didn't showcase as tiki. I showcased it like very southern, but I made my own falernum at home. And I did a little curacao, my Manhattan. So it was very citrusy, and both my cocktails were very like nutty, and that was kind of the southern nutty, like using southern ingredients almost, but like I've made
It's a nutty drink.
yeah, nutty. It's
To be enjoyed on a porch somewhere.
I'm from
I think
Dorchester.
the TR will love it. Now, who's doing the judging over here?
apparently there was even more southern drinks. A buddy of mine, Zach, he did like a whiskey sour with horchata, but like he had fried chicken served on it, and I was like, I don't think you can get more southern than that.
That's pretty good.
Oh boy.
But besides that, I've done like a pistachio orgeat. I've done macadamia nut, and then obviously like a regular one. And this last time, I don't really like love using flavorings or anything like that. But I think that like letting it sit for as long as you possibly can, like a lot of times when we're making something at work, like we're like, okay, it can sit for like a few hours and then we're going to use it. But like the longer you really let things sit, kind of like give it its time, the better it tastes. And
That's so true.
this last one, I let it sit for like 8 hours. I hit it with hot water, make sure you get all that toxic stuff that's on nuts off of it. Let that sit for like 30 minutes, drain it, throw it in the blender, toss some more hot water on it, and then let that sit. That like kind of like pecan or almond or macadamia nut or like cashew milk, like let it become like the milky part, and then
Draw the oils out.
Draw the oils out. And then hit that with sugar after, and like not let it get too hot, but just enough where it's like thick.
Enough to expand the cells. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I definitely like to sear them sometimes.
Oh, that too. Yeah, you always have
I
to.
like to sear them. I also love the orange blossom flower effect.
Yeah.
I think that
So
really,
orange flower water and rose water,
Right.
really classic ingredients. Some people use both. I like to use both. And some people use one or the other, typically orange flower water being most common. But I think if I could bring this all back, now I found this document here, but one thing that's really interesting about this, they talk about like pronunciation, because orgeat, harkening back to the old derivation of the word orzata, going back to Italy, one thing that is fascinating about orgeat, and I just can't help but call it orgeat because that's what I've always called it.
Yeah.
Always.
I think that works. That's fine. And I really don't think it matters how you say.
I think if you start to like derive from that, I think people would not know what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, because people almost already don't know.
And he makes the point that he's Canadian, so they can say weird shit.
Is that allowed just because you're Canadian?
Yeah. He's Canadian. He makes that point, so I'm going to give him that.
Hey.
But here's one fascinating thing that I think is just so interesting when you talk about orgeat and falernum. Those two nutty, somewhat spicy, obviously falernum being more spiced than orgeat, but you have these nutty, sort of fatty syrups, liqueurs, elixirs, and there are two ways that they were originally enjoyed, very simple, with falernum, wormwood bitters. That was and we'll get into that on shots next week. But there's a drink called the Marmoset it was an old French drink where they would use orgeat and pastis. And that was and so that is the falernum and wormwood bitters was a Caribbean thing. Also, there are even instances where it was used in the South Pacific. They would drink these spiced liqueurs with wormwood and then take it all the way over to Paris where they were drinking orgeat with pastis. And I just think that's kind of fascinating. And to tie all that together, we've talked a lot about absinthe. You've mentioned absinthe, putting a little absinthe here and there. You talked about absinthe. And that is one thing that you can do. So a lot of people that write to us on the Instagram or that talk about the show, they say, I have this product at home. I don't know what to do with it. And absinthe is one of those ingredients that if you're using it in tropical drinks, you can really make it last because you only need like a teaspoon or less.
A dash.
A
Doesn't
dash.
take very
Throw it
much
in a
to
dasher.
awaken the senses.
It really can make a relatively simple exotic drink so much more complex. And so I just thought that was interesting to note that both of those nutty ingredients, classic to the world of exotic drinks, were traditionally used with these kind of wormwood, anise flavors. It's kind of fascinating.
One of my favorite tools for bartending that I think a lot of people who like get making drinks use is the flavor Bible. Commonly for chefs, you know, like I think every chef definitely has one, you know, on their bookshelf, but
Indispensable.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you have your
I think
flavor
most
Bible
chefs
with you.
have it, but they hide it.
Really? I mean, I love mine. Like, I would not start to think about making a drink without having it, and just like looking up the certain things that kind of like complement each other is so helpful. Even when you're bartending, like obviously you know that like passion fruit and coconut go together, but like to know that certain other items would pair also with that, or how like
Sure.
almonds pair with that, and just kind of like knowing what your flavors are. It's interesting to see that. And then looking at what your drinks, your original cocktail specs, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense because all of these flavors go together. What else can I throw into this mix that's going to complement these flavors or go right against it?
It's almost like you talk about falernum and wormwood. You have all these spices that might go into a falernum, and what's like one thing that could kind of round that out that you might not want to use in the falernum, and that might be like an anise or an anise, star anise sort of flavor that you might be scared to use on the falernum because it's going to take over. But it also, on the flip side, might make a drink with the falernum that much better.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of interesting as well. Yeah, big fan of the Flavor Bible. That can help you begin to think like a baker to where you might not think. I think berries is a great example of that, right? So if you're using blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, all those items are about to become in season, and you might not think, oh, I should use some spice with that. But if you were a baker or if you were a pastry chef, that is what you would think, right? You'd be working with blueberries and blackberries, and a pastry chef is typically going to think like cinnamon or something like that.
Nutmeg.
And looking,
Something.
nutmeg, exactly. And looking at the Flavor Bible can help turn your brain that way a little bit. But I finally dug up this newspaper from 1911 that was talking about orgeat. Takes its name from the French orge, and I quote, and was formerly a syrup in which a decoction of that cereal was used. They're talking about barley cereal here. It has come now to mean a drink prepared with an emulsion of almonds and is slightly medicinal as well as refreshing on a hot day. Isn't that just how they thought back in 1911? It's refreshing and it's slightly medicinal
Almond is a no.
because it makes you feel better, I guess.
Almond is, in fact, a anti-inflammatory, as opposed to a peanut, which is considered an inflammatory.
Damn. It goes
an
on to
ibuprofen.
say,
Stay
quote,
away from that.
it is said to be good for hay fever, among other things. To prepare, boil 2 quarts of milk with a stick of cinnamon. Remove the spice and let the milk cool. Blanch 4 ounces of sweet almonds, and when they are cold, pound them in a mortar with a little rose water and enough orange flower water to form a paste. I love that. They talk about using both of them. And then sweeten the milk and boil the almond paste in it for a few moments, not too long, or the paste will become oily. Strain the beverage through a fine sieve so that it will be smooth in quality, and serve it on the day it is made with ice. So that's kind of cool. That's
really
over 100 years old, and it's also very concise. You know, they say brevity is the soul of wit. They pretty much go over, you know, a lot of what you need to know about the origins of orgeat in, you know, a paragraph there. So it's kind of interesting.
That's wild.
Very interesting.
Those were simpler times.
One of my favorite
when everything was good
like,
for you.
people doing like innovative things is trash tiki. Have you guys heard of them?
Sure.
I didn't steal something from them, but I took their ideas and like did like a Hawaiian roll orgeat. But their main thing is reusing and being sustainable. So like, what can we use within our community? Do this cool pop-up, reuse an item, make something out of like essentially what would be trash. So like one of their things was an almond croissant orgeat. So they would like take these croissants. I don't know why I'm doing this, but they would like go to their bakery and like take the croissants and say like, okay, these are day old croissants. Like you guys aren't going to serve them anymore. You're going to throw them out. We'll take those. And then they will like immerse them in super overproof rum, like Ray and Nephew or something like that, and let it sit for like a day or 8 hours or however long. And then blend it all together and then put it over heat and strain it with sugar, put it over heat with sugar and strain it. And then they would have this like Orgeat without using any new products that would also have this almond flavor. And I think that's so cool that they were able to kind of like push ahead and use something different and like not waste any product and use something new and make something new out of waste.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
That's great. It's kind of like what I was talking about in one of our meetings recently about me being in Miami at Broken Shaker like 6 years ago. And one of the bartenders made me a rye-based Mai Tai with rye Orgeat, saying how he went to a Jewish bakery and literally did that exact same thing.
It's incredible.
And it was awesome. I still think about the cocktail to this day.
And what was he taking? Rye cookies or rye,
Just rye
or the rye
bread.
bread? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible. It like blew my mind. I was just like in awe. It was great.
That's
I was
awesome.
Still very young in my tiki ventures at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a chef kid I was talking to yesterday that's making a Parker House roll miso right now.
Oh wow.
So they landed on a whole shitload of Parker House rolls with no use for them. They were going to go bad. It's like, just throw some salt in there and ferment it.
Yeah.
Why
Fuck it.
not?
If you can
Yeah.
be sustainable with tiki and with exotic drinks, you can do it with anything, I think, would be the lesson.
Yeah.
Now, you also do artwork.
Yes.
Let's give that a shout out. Sinners in Paradise?
Yeah. I haven't been doing
Sinners
it too
in
much,
Paradise.
but I do it a
Don't
lot.
be modest. You did your own little menu thing for the Woodford thing. That was cool. But you post some of your work on Instagram at Sinners in Paradise, correct?
Yes, I do.
Very
Yes,
cool.
Sinners in
What's some of your
Paradise.
influences on that? I mean, obviously your Florida upbringing, your tiki background, your sort of
Yeah, I mean,
tropicalia.
yeah, exactly. Just like growing up in Florida is, even though I'm not there anymore, it's just kind of something that I still see in my head. You know, like I could be I started kind of like posting more on my page that's completely separate from like my personal Instagram. That's Sinners in Paradise when I was in Chicago. And I think it was just like an absence of seeing like what I normally see all the time. And I just kind of like kept drawing it. And I went to school originally for like art and design. So that's kind of something that I've just always done, and I've been drawing ever since I was a kid. And it's just, I talked to you about this a few times, it's just like another creative outlet that kind of like lets you express different things
For sure.
than that bartending does. And I mean, I have so many favorite artists in general, but like my favorite tiki artists are usually just like the mug makers. I love tiki mugs, and we have so many at home, and we live in a really tiny apartment right now, so it's like they are all hidden away and I don't get to see them as much. But
Bummer.
yeah, it's super sad. We don't get to use them either.
Set up a little tiki station.
It's-
That's what I do.
We have
Maybe
so
when
much
you leave,
stuff.
they like climb out of the boxes and like play and talk to each other, run around the house.
They were like, someone's
And
like,
then-
drink out of me.
I have like I'm not gonna lie. Almost every single day, I take a shot out of a different tiki shot glass.
Yeah, you got a little tiki
Yeah.
shot glass
I
collection.
have
That's
like
pretty cool.
20, 25 of them.
Wow, we
Yeah.
used to make them
Just
at
shot
Creepy
glasses.
Tiki, like just like the tiki shot glasses. Our partner next door, Jackson, he would design the mugs and have them made, and he had like the shot glasses and our regular glasses. But like Tiki Diablo is a good friend. His name's Daniel.
So
That's
our
exactly
listeners
right.
at home,
Yes.
if you have these mugs sitting around the house like Demi over here, and they just don't get enough use, bring them out into the light, and we'll take care of them.
Eventually,
We'll work something out.
eventually, when we have our house, they'll be on the wall. We'll
Yeah.
have our tiki wall like we used to.
Tiki Farm is always great too.
Yeah, Tiki Farm made the Chopper robot tiki mugs
Oh yeah.
that you will just have to come once we're open. Come and get it. You'll get a drink in them, but you can also take them home.
How much are you selling them for there, Mike?
We could talk about that. We could talk a little deal. for your-
$10,000
Do I get them
Logistics.
all?
This
Do I
is
get
our
all of
tiki
them?
mug agent, over
broker.
here. Tiki mug broker over
We'll
here.
finance that.
I can't
Mr.
imagine you'll
Kenneth
have some
Dedmon.
people like waiting for them. You guys you're getting there, which is really exciting.
Yeah, we're getting close. We're shooting for, somewhere around the middle of April. But it's all coming together. 3-dimensional things are becoming 3-dimensional, so it's getting exciting for sure. And now it's time to turn things over to our mug broker / Booze News chairman. What do you got this week for Booze News, Kenneth Dedmon?
Let's try to slow it down here.
Who are you, Luther Vandross?
This is my shot
Let's
at the
drop
mic.
the bass.
This is my shot at the mic.
We weren't going very fast.
No, I want Booze News to be a slow burn. I actually listened to an episode recently, and I think we're almost there. We're almost okay at Booze News. And,
You're doing a great job.
thank you, but I
I've been
don't
listening to you
take
guys.
compliments very well, Mike. So
Yeah.
you might as well just
Fuck off. What's the first section?
Okay. No.
I did enjoy your Booze News about Japanese whiskey. I like that.
That was with Sal, right?
Yeah, Sally.
Yeah.
Sally Gatz coming at you.
Shit, yeah. Shout out to all of our guests that we've had so far. This has been a great run.
Yeah.
I want to say hey to Jared and Allie, Craig and Sally, and who's that little twerp that was here?
Our boy Alex down the hill at Bastion. Our wine.
Oh no, Kevin.
Man. Oh.
Kevin King. Yeah,
Kevin's a
that
little twerp. That's
snarky
right.
guy.
Kevin King.
yeah.
Okay.
man.
Absolutely, Alex Birch.
Can't wait to edit that part.
We got to get that Kevin joke right.
Yeah.
Got to get it perfect.
Yeah.
So, first the Booze News out in the UK in Tenderden, England. Gin producer by the name of Chapel Down Distillery is producing a Pinot Noir gin with a pink hue and light juniper notes. So I want to give a shout out to our old and hopefully upcoming guests, and want to extend an invite to the gin party whenever I can get a bottle of this. I want to get everyone together.
Sounds
We'll
great.
make a big batch and we'll freaking party. There's no way we can do a show out of it. Maybe we'll get everyone together for a picture though. That'd be freaking dope.
Yeah, we can do on-site interviews.
Then,
Get the old mini disc player out.
okay, starting to warm up here in St. Nicholas Abbey in Barbados. You can take the rum train around the 400-acre
That's
distillery
exciting.
site,
Oh my
single
God.
estate distillery site, 350-year-old distillery. Barbados is self-proclaimed the capital of rum. I go with it if someone said it to me incredibly confidently. But
If Richard Seal was talking to you, you would say yes.
Say sure, man.
seems super dope. They've restored a steam locomotive circa 1914 that basically goes in a circle around the said site with a bartender in tow.
Perfect.
Sounds like a great party. Sounds
like you need a bartender for that. Yep.
Yeah, it's freaking dope. It's retrofitted. It's ready. They've got ice. They got cold ice.
I look
and
forward to that
shitload of-
Liquid Gold episode where we're on that train.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
needs to happen. About a year from now.
Okay,
Let's be realistic.
1 year and a day.
1 year and a day.
It sounds a lot better than the Napa train tour, which is
Oh, tell me about this.
it's a Napa.
I don't know about this.
Oh, great. In white people news, in trollable white people news, the Napa Valley Wine Tour Company is
A weekly segment here.
is featuring a 1920 flapper thing murder mystery dinner Napa Wine Tour.
Murder mystery.
Murder mystery tour. So you get on a train and you play Clue with
Cool.
weird fabric on your head.
Yeah.
Listen to horns.
And there's
Doesn't
wine.
sound too bad.
There's wine, right?
Yeah, there's lots of wine being
there's
poured.
there's a lot of wine, a lot of Napa Cab.
Yep. I'll have the Pinot. Oh, the cab. Yeah.
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 Just
That's
have
probably a lot of
steak.
that. I'll use
Just
the
have a
cab.
steak. And what
Yeah,
Reggie?
we're trying to play a murder mystery game here. You're like, medium rare?
Hey, Steve did it. Steve did it. He told me.
Can I get a steak?
I had a
Come on.
guest this past weekend over spring break, which spring break has been awful. He asked me for a Don Julio well done. He's like, I'll have a well done Don Julio. I'm just like, he wasn't asking for it as like, can you make this good for me. He was like saying a steak temp. Like he could have said medium rare. He could have just changed it out. It was hilarious. Like I'm like, are you ordering food?
Did he want ice chunks?
Yeah. How did
what's
you
the
provide that?
interpretation
Yeah.
there?
I just
You
gave
slap
it,
him in the face and then throw it on the bar?
I was just like, should I serve
That's
you?
my
Like,
joke.
I thought about it like a couple times. I'm like, should I be serving you right now? Like this just doesn't seem like the best thing to be doing.
I
Not
think
to interrupt you, but it was
what
hilarious.
I would do is
I'm sure he had a hotel room. Serve that boy.
No, he didn't.
I would take that tequila and put it in a microwave for like
5 to 7 minutes on high.
for a while.
Bar explodes after well done tequila order. Bar explodes.
Well,
I would.
I guess to
Bartender says, "I told you so."
I guess to garnish the drink, I would take the microwave and just bash his head into.
working with Kenneth, it's obviously the best part of the night to hear his responses to questions like that.
Chill out, bro. You're gonna get me fired.
The weekly not get Kenneth fired segment here on Liquid Gold, brought to you by.
All right, okay. Now we're warmed up. We're ready for some fucking booze news.
Yeah, what else we
To
got?
all
for
our
booze news?
cottonmouth companions out there, I want to talk about a real Nashvilleian, Tanya Tucker, who's partnered with Partida Distillery to create her own tequila company. Said
Oh, wow.
company would
I'm
be
on board.
Casa
I'm on board.
Salvaje. Casa Salvaje, which translates to Wild Thing. Wild Thing Tequila by Tanya Tucker. I'm really excited about this. And is it fair? Is it fair for tequila producers,
I think that
competing tequila producers, to face up to Tanya Tucker?
I think that whole nexus, that whole universe, that it's like a micro universe that gets created. It's like the Big Bang, the nature of reality. Did
Right.
the Big Bang create other multiple Big Bangs that created all these different universes? You pair up a tequila company with Tanya Tucker, you're sort of creating this unfair universe of awesomeness. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, Tanya Tucker, she's been around for a while, y'all.
It sounds awesome.
I don't know.
Anyone know
We'll
about
send you.
Tanya
We'll
Tucker?
send you. We'll send you links.
I'm a
Send
little
us
bit
links.
excited and hopeful for Dwayne The Rock Johnson's tequila. I really hope it's going to be good. It might not be, but I hope it will be.
Don't derail me here, man.
Hits you right in the gut.
We're on Tanya Tucker right now, and
Tanya
Delta
Tucker.
Dawn, one of the best country songs ever written, ever sang. #1 hit for Tanya Tucker when she was 13 years old. Delta Dawn, of course, talks about debatably about an old beauty queen, an aging beauty queen who may or may not be a woman of the night. Sang it at the age of 13, though. This was something that my parents kind of censored from me.
Are you saying Delta Dawn or Delta
Delta Dawn.
Dawn?
Delta Dawn.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, the way you're describing it could go either way. I feel like.
Sure.
was-
It's songs are always up to
She was
interpretation.
41, and Daddy still called her baby.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's a dope song, and I encourage you to seek it out. My mom never kind of shied away from young singers that like had not experienced life yet.
What happened to booze news? There's like it's like an
What?
Anchorman
We're talking
broadcast.
about tequila, right?
That squirrel can water ski. It's the squirrels
Oh, I
that
love
water
that.
ski.
Yeah.
It's a squirrels that water ski portion of Liquid Gold today. What else you got for booze news today?
Closing out booze news and continuing with our amateur series, Hero or Not. 19-year-old gentleman in Mizzou, aka known as Missouri, aka known as, if you want to piss someone off from Missouri, you call it Missouri. Employee at an Enterprise rent-a-car in Arnold, Missouri, unexpectedly to his coworkers administered LSD to them in their water bottles.
Lucky them.
Whoa.
Still allegedly, he hasn't been charged, but he has admitted to it to police. Pending lab results, he will be charged with likely charged with second degree assault and drug possession.
Wow. Liquid bold.
Liquid bold.
The gentleman admitted to police they were too uptight and they needed to have better energy.
That's a good guy.
According to News KMOV Channel 4, the folks felt better after the drugs wore off.
But maybe that they had seen the light.
Perhaps.
Wow.
Now, do you think those waters were cold or just like room temperature?
Room temperature.
Yeah.
I feel like if it was cold, you like definitely wouldn't notice. If it was room temp, you might be like, huh, something tastes a little weird in my water.
My coworkers
But
do that to me.
it's Missouri, so it's
I have
probably
like
really
a
hot.
not
Missouri.
LSD. I have a bad habit of I bring a water bottle with me to work. I've been trying to be like a little more health conscious, like bring water, make sure I drink my water. Mm-hmm. But I always forget it.
I know that this kid was clever though. He was like, I'm gonna go get a water. You want one?
Anybody needs some
opened
water?
it for you. Drink it, Bob.
It's good for you. Classic Mike Wolf. Stay hydrated, folks.
Yeah,
As you get a scratch on your back.
And we're done with booze news. Thanks,
dude,
thanks
that
for
was
listening.
a great addition today of Booze News.
Yeah, it was okay.
Thank you so much.
I'll do better
there were
next time.
2 trains.
Yeah,
You had 2 trains on Booze News today.
and
I
a
appreciate it.
country song.
Yeah.
2 trains and a country song.
And tequila and Tanya Tucker is definitely unfair. I think that's easy to say.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
This was great. We want to throw a shout out to We Own This Town for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Again, as always, check us out at liquidgold_pod on Instagram and send us a message. And we do invite you, please subscribe, and you can always share an episode with a friend by texting an episode out. So definitely do that. Find us on Apple, Spotify, also weownthistown.net. And we look forward to more features and more fun on Tiki Month here on liquidgold_pod. And we look forward. We're getting ready to open Chopper, so we'll keep you updated on all that. Find us at Chopper Tiki on Instagram.
Hit us up on the gram. Say hey.
For my co-host Kenneth Dedmon, Kenneth, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. With a heavy heart.
Yeah,
We got this done. I love
we got
you.
it done. Yeah.
Thank you, Demi. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for having
Love
me.
y'all.
Thanks for having
We
us.
love
I
you.
was so
It was
looking
a
forward
pleasure.
to this.
Definitely
great.
a pleasure. I'm happy to be here and a part of your beautiful podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm Mike Wolf, and we will see you next time.